Okay, so hi everyone. My name's Jennifer, for those that don't meet me, and welcome to the first talk as part of Meticulous Markings, which is an exhibition at Fountain House Gallery, currently in New York. For anyone that needs it, a visual description of myself is I am a white woman in my 40s with bright red hair, with a very blunt fringe, and I'm wearing a black top with pearls all over it today. I'm just going to go around the artists for them to visually describe themselves too. So, Annie, you just need to unmute yourself.
I'm Annie. I'm a white woman in my late 40s with shoulder-length brown hair, glasses, and a white sweater.
Thank you. Kelila?
Hi, my name is Kelila. I am a petite white woman with medium length hair that is dyed blue with a little bit of purple. And I'm wearing a pink shirt.
Thank you. Alyson?
Hi, I'm Allison, and I'm a tiny uh old pale Puerto Rican bob cut grandmother with black Malcolm X glasses.
Excellent description. And Susan?
Hi, my name is Susan, and I am of mixed ethnicity, olive-skinned, with dark blonde hair and bangs. And I'm wearing a hospital gown, one of them from my last hospital stay, and I hope never to return.
Thank you. And for anyone in England who doesn't know what bangs are, it's a fringe. Alternative word for fringe. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen, if that's all right with everyone, just to bring up a couple of slides. So let's share. Hopefully everyone can see this. So a little bit about me. So I'm based in the UK and I was invited to curate this exhibition at Fountain House Gallery. So I am a UK-based gallerist, a freelance producer, and a curator working with disabled, neurodivergent, self-taught, and overlooked artists. In 2017, I set up my gallery to showcase and empower artists internationally. And before that, I managed a national arts charity for underrepresented artists in the UK. I organise exhibitions in museums and contemporary art spaces internationally, as well as taking part in art fairs. And I organise professional development pathways for artists around the world and work with museums and organisations around access and inclusion. Ooh. My screen doesn't want to click across. Let's just do it manually. This is just an example of an exhibition that I curated in Margate called To All the Kings Who Have No Crowns. And a little about Fountain House and Fountain House Gallery for those that are unaware. So Fountain House is a national mental health not-for-profit fighting to improve health, increase opportunity, and end social and economic isolation for people living with serious mental illness. And founded in the year 2000, Fountain House Gallery sells original artworks and collaborates with a wide network of artists, curators, and cultural institutions. The studio, which is located in Long Island City, is a collaborative workspace that furthers the professional practice of our artists. Embracing artists who are emerging or established, trained or self-taught, Fountain House Gallery cultivates artistic growth, makes a vital contribution to the New York arts community, and challenges the stigma surrounding mental illness. So that's just a little bit of background for those that don't know. And this on the right is an artist's impression of what the gallery looks like, and on the left is the studio. So I'm going to stop sharing for 2 seconds just to explain how today is going to work. We're going to hear from 4 of the artists in the exhibition that I've curated that's currently on in New York. We're going to have a little Q&A with each artist. If you have any questions, it would be great if you could put them in the chat box because we're going to save all the questions till the end, or just hold that question with you and then ask it at the end. And you can also just raise your hand so that I know to come to you at the end if you didn't want to type it into the chat box, and we can come and you can kind of read your question out loud if you want to. So without further ado, we're going to get into the artists. Each artist will have just one work on the screen, so you really get to listen to the artist talking. So Annie, we're going to start with you. If you want to unmute yourself, and I am going to share your screen, your work. So on the left is one of Annie's works in the exhibition, so you could see it a bit more clearly. And on the right is Annie's work in the exhibition. And what was really important for me, and what I felt was important for the artists, is next to each of the artist's works, if they wanted to, they could write a bit about the artwork and its importance to them. And that's why you can see some text next to the work. So Annie, do you want to join me?
Sure.
And let's start by getting you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you've come to art.
My mom is very artistic, and when I was a little girl, she taught me every type of art that she knew. She taught me cross stitch, decorative painting, cross music. She taught me everything, and she took me to the Museum of Modern Art as a little girl. And she tried to get me to name every artist by giving me a quarter for each artist I could identify.
I love that.
And my whole family would come into New York City many times to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And we would always go to Gray's Papaya to eat crispy hot dogs afterwards. So I ended up going to the School of Visual Arts. I was a painting and drawing major. And I've only come to color pencils in the last 3 years. I'm normally an animator. So that's a little bit about how I came to art.
Great. And how did you then come to Fountain House Gallery?
To the gallery.
Or to the studios and the gallery? How did that happen?
Well, I was in trouble and I didn't know if someone would be able to take care of me because my family situation was really precarious. And so after seeing my doctor for 4 months, she told me about Fountain House. And I came. I actually left home and I was wandering. And then I ended up at Fountain House and they provided me with a place to stay. And I don't work at the studio. I work when I'm at home because I really need isolation and silence. But I have been showing in the gallery for many months now, and they're just very welcoming.
And why is it that you need isolation and silence when you make your art? If there was noise around, do you think that alters the way that you create?
Can't create if there's noise or if someone's with me or if the TV is on. I have to feel peace because when I make a picture, I pick out the color pencils and then I bring them to the paper and I fall into a trance. And my pencil starts doing something that I've never known. I've never learned it. It creates patterns. It creates mystery. And if someone interrupts me while I'm in my trance, it ends. And you can see in the picture where it ended because suddenly if I try to continue, the colors will change, the patterns will change. I have no idea what the rules were that I was following. So it's really a pity if I do break my trance because then the whole paper is wasted. But that's why I can only work very small so that I know I won't be interrupted and I can finish the piece.
And say like a piece that's on the screen now, that's sort of a postcard kind of size piece. How long would you say that takes you to create?
Maybe 8 hours to do something like that.
So 8 hours nonstop?
Yeah.
Wow. No time to stop and eat and drink, Annie.
I mean, some finish in a couple of hours, but this one, the feather, I mean, if you look at it, you can see how many dots are there. And I have to go very slowly. I have to put every dot down with thought. I can't just start dabbing at the paper. I actually think about each single dot that I put down.
That's really beautiful. I'm gonna just stop sharing your screen so that people can see you better when you're speaking, and I might pin you if that's okay.
Okay.
Or spotlight you, and you might become quite big. There we go. And I did forget to mention, and sorry for mentioning, if anyone needs the transcript, if you click on the bottom of your panel where it says more, a transcript will appear, and you can see that alongside the person speaking, which is generated by Zoom. So Annie, how do you feel about your work being in this particular show, and what drew you to want to put some work forward for the exhibition?
I've been kind of hoarding all these drawings for many years, and I felt like they might be something special to other people, but for some reason I like to keep a lot of things secret lately. I just kind of amass piles of these drawings. And then I kind of waited. I didn't show anyone, and I waited and I waited, and then Fountain Gallery said that you were curating a show with, intense surface pattern. So I thought, okay, this is the time. So I put them forward. Jennifer saw them. I made a little video of each piece, and she invited me to show the pieces that are here in this exhibit. And I think when my friends come to see the gallery, they're shocked because they've never seen me do anything like this. I finally came out of hiding for this show.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I keep things back. Like, I have many things that I'm still keeping back, that I'll release them one day.
That feels really special then, that like nobody had really seen them, and then suddenly they came out for this, and they were so perfect for the brief that I sent over to Fountain House as well. So it's a magical moment, and I'm glad that people are getting to see them. And I think if you're in the space and you get to read the text alongside them, it makes them all the more powerful when you read the text as well. And some of the ones in the exhibition, they've got like words and sentences hidden inside them. Do you want to kind of tell people about that as well?
Sure. They're very meaningful to me because most of them were made in a time of trauma. And I was reading the Psalms. I love to read the scriptures. My parents taught us to read the scriptures from a young age. All 11 of us would gather in my parents' bedroom, and we would read the scriptures before we went to school together. And that stuck with me. And then when I was going through my difficult time, I decided to put messages to people in my drawings, even though they might not see them. My favorite drawing says, "He will not forsake his faithful ones." And I wrote it in little dots, so you could see it on the paper, but then I kind of hide it by covering the rest of the paper with dots, so that I'm the only one who knows what the drawings say. And they're really meaningful to me because of what they say, but other people have no idea that there are messages hidden in these drawings. One of them has a message that says, "He will not forsake his faithful ones." And a lot of them are cries for help. Another one it says, "She called me out of the darkness." And it's about Heavenly Mother coming to visit me. I was having trouble with my hair. It was falling out, and I wanted to get a wig, but my husband made so much fun of me. But I didn't want to take it off because I felt like having more hair would make me successful and have a life of abundance. So I was wearing this wig around the house, and then I was sitting on the couch kind of crying wearing it, and then I felt like Heavenly Mother came to visit me, and I looked over at her and she was wearing the exact same wig. Little messages like that are in the work.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, and the importance of having these words in your work. And unless you read the wall text, you wouldn't know that the text is in there. And even like you said, even when you look at the piece, it's near on impossible to see where the words are, but because you wrote it, you can kind of see them. But on one of them I was like, I have no idea what this says, or you've told us what it says, but I cannot see that in that piece of work. So it really is quite hidden. And then Annie, how would you describe your art to us in 5 words?
Well, if you look at my art in general, it swings between scary and dark to these pieces which are pastel and comforting.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us for now, before we move on to the next artist?
Sure. Well, the dots are very tiny, and it's really hard for me because the more I make them, the worse my vision gets, because my eyes just can't handle being trained on the paper so closely. So I'm trying to do other things, but I really can't stop doing these dots. It's kind of like a question of whether I'm just going to do them until I can't even see.
But you said that you might try and do some that are bigger now.
I tried doing it with paint pens, but the dots are the wrong size. They just have to be that particular size.
Small.
Yeah.
Small and intense. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Annie, thank you for sharing that today, and we'll come back to you for the Q&A in a bit, if that's okay. Just going to remove the spotlight and ask Kelila to unmute yourself, and I'm going to share one of Kalila's drawings. Not that way. Not wanting to play ball. Oh no. Well, it's meant to be Alyson, but Kelila will do you.
Yes.
My brain has gone into the wrong mode today. So this is a close-up of one of your drawings, and these are the ones in the exhibition to the right, and these are all quite small, again in scale, which I adore because I love intense detail like this. So Kelila, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to art?
Sure. Because I came to art very late. In college, I took one drawing class because I honestly I was just too scared to pursue my artistic soul desires. So I was, going off into a career possibly in psychology, but then I got hit by a cab. So I was, working on writing and acting and things of that nature. And then I developed spinal stenosis and fibromyalgia and had metal dropped on my head. So I still wanted to be creative, but acting wasn't allowing me to do that. So I pivoted to visual art. And I've been a hobby artist, and I do love cross stitching, and I tried embroidery. But this is the first time that I really sat down intensely and intentionally to create art. So yes, I had one drawing class, I guess maybe when I was 20. And I just started taking classes. I was offered a scholarship to go to a ceramics class last summer. And that just really opened up, my artistic ability to think about things, because I was working, in 3D with hand building for that. And again, you can do mark making on the clay. So that was something that I was already thinking about, working with that. And now I'm taking a gestural abstraction painting class, which is a ton of fun.
Wow. And what year would you say that you pivoted to visual art then?
Just in 2023. Wow. My first show was the Small Works at Fountain House Gallery. And then since then, I think I've been in a total of 5 shows now, 3 that were curated. So it's all, been very fast and exciting adventure. It's a really great journey to be on.
It's amazing. That has happened pretty swiftly. And so the ceramics course that you're doing, you're drawing into the ceramics.
Yeah. I either, do it with a sharp edge of something, or sometimes I even will take like a stamp and just do a repeating thing all around the outside of the piece.
Wow. And so you said you've been kind of part of Fountain House maybe since 2023, is that right?
I actually joined in Fountain House of 2013, but between physical problems and mental problems, I really struggled to get there. And it wasn't until the pandemic and they had their virtual programming that I was able to like feel like a very active member of the community. I go to artists talks and take Technique Tuesday and do all sorts of sketch classes and everything all via Zoom with them. And it's been incredible. I have developed, friendships with people just by being on screen over the course of, a year or more. It's really
Wow.
exciting. Yeah.
And those Zoom things, are they still happening now?
Yes, thank gosh. Yes. Thank God bless hybrid.
That's amazing because I know a lot of programs kind of just switch straight back to just in person, and it's wonderful to hear that hybrid still exists. Excellent news. So can you tell us about these works in the exhibition? I'm going to stop sharing again and spotlight you if that's okay.
Sure. Each one represents a generally a state of mind that I'm in. There's one that is all pink H's, and that's just love. It's sort of a Valentine to a dog that lives in my building that my fiance and I help to take care of. Her name is Hannah, and she has all these pink accoutrements. And she just, she's just the sweetest thing. And she was laying at my feet, and I wanted to do something for her. So I did an entire page, like a 5x8, of thousands of H's, so that when you look from far away, it has the appearance of a kiss. So, yes, there's that one. And then the one that you showed are all the letter Z. I very much like letters and simple geometric shapes and repeating them. So that one is an aerial view as if you were looking down on a sea, and on top of the sea are floating all these letter Z's, and they're just washing up over and over again on the rocks. And that one actually had, it was for the Boundaries show. It had to do with, how I felt about my last name versus how other people felt about my last name. I'm very proud of it, and I love it. Sometimes it seems to intimidate other people when it comes to pronouncing it, and they make assumptions about my identity and my heritage based on it. And it's just, for these zillions of times that, I've had to say Z as in zebra, it was just in my brain, and now it is out on paper. And there's one that is just with the letter K, which is the first one that I did in more than one color. I usually like to just use a single micron pen. So it's the tiniest little nib, with all this repetition. And with the letter K, I built a forest. I made trees, and it's actually a burnt forest. There is a phrase that my fiance has told me before, and he says, the past is a burnt forest. So yes, it's immutable. I can't change it. However, a burnt forest is not a completely dead place. Underneath the burnt bark is still a lot that can feed birds and insects, and new life pops up from it. So with that one, that is me trying to climb out of my old life, recognizing that it's still there, but being ready for change and new life springing forth from it. So I guess that's kind of a phoenix type of thing.
Wow. Before you tell us about the last two, you're going to have to tell us how you pronounce your surname.
Oh, sure. It's Zechowy.
Zechowy. And why is it important for you to often normally just use one color?
I like simplicity. I find beauty in simplicity. I find using one color, you can actually still get more than one shade, because it will depend on how slowly I move the pen across the paper, how heavy my hand is with the pen touching to the paper. So even with just pink, there's more than one pink in there. And so I kind of sometimes like setting hard limits, because within like a very narrow, rigid system is a ton of creativity. So
Thank you.
yes.
And yeah, if you want to tell us about the last two works.
Okay. Yes, there's one that is yellow triangles. And that one I was in a state of anger, frustration, disbelief, confusion, all of the emotions that came up for me over the past year because of all of the protests on college campuses. They had tents, and my alma mater is Columbia. I'm a Barnard graduate. And when I looked at the pictures, the tents were all the same. So obviously they were all bought from the same money and from the same source. And I just was looking out at these like yellow peaks. And so I work in like density. So I wanted to show, just how many students were coming together and doing this. And somebody did ask me already about choosing the color yellow. And yes, I specifically chose yellow because Jews during the Holocaust were forced to wear yellow stars for identification purposes.
Great. And the final work?
Yes. Is that the orange O's?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That one was tricky to do. It's called The Story of OCD.
It's not the orange O's.
Okay.
It's the blue.
Oh, the blue. Wait, I forgot which one was. Blue circles? No.
It's got a big pale circular part in the middle.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Thank you. Sorry. I've made many of these, as you can see. That one is almost like a big C, and it's all drawn with the letter C in blue. And it's as if they were going to be flowing across the page, but there's like bottlenecking and puddling of the C's because we are drowning in a sea of information. And people are controlling the flow of the information. It's out there. There's a lot out there. It's hard to know what's real and what's not. But also there are definitely hands that are controlling who sees what.
Beautiful. What a great description. And how would you describe your art to someone in just 5 words?
Okay, let's see. Intricate, obsessive, detailed, passionate, and intense.
Wow. Great choice of words. And is there anything final you'd like to share with everyone about your art?
Yeah, I just want to let people know that for as tiny and detailed and monochromatic as my drawings are, if you can see behind me, my paintings are opposite. They are large and wild and multicolored. So I'm kind of having a lot of fun exploring both extremes. It's really great.
And do you have a preference as to your favorite, or you enjoy them both?
Oh, okay. I will be honest. It is a lot more fun to be painting at an easel, listening to music, kind of grooving along, as opposed to hunch over a drawing. Yeah.
I hear you. Great. Well, thank you for that. And we'll come back to you again for the Q&A. And Alyson, if you want to unmute yourself, I'm going to share yours. Here we go. So on the left is one of Alyson's embroideries. So you can see it a bit more clearly. There's lots of little tiny bits of fabric positioned next to each other. And on the right are the works within the exhibition. And this is a window on the top left, in case you wondered what it might be. Because it threw me when I was looking at it. I was like, what is that? So Alyson, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to art?
I came to art very late in life as well. I I I was a math teacher for 22 years. That was my career, and I think I was very left brain. I come from a family of artists, but I was the um rational, I found art to be a little out of control. So I taught math, and then in 2007, I found out I had a brain surgery, a brain tumor, and had to have brain surgery. And I began compulsively picking up pieces of things off the street, things that didn't look beautiful, somehow felt like they belonged somewhere. And I also lost the ability to teach, which is, um, I didn't see it. I couldn't see myself. The part of you that can see yourself is your brain. So
Mm.
when it's damaged, it's difficult to um, tell how, what's going on. But so I felt kind of tricked into stopping work. I felt like um, I could still do my job, and I didn't understand why I had to leave. And, it led me down a very dark path. And I, I ended up in the hospital, and then I ended up staying home a lot. And I found I was just making tons of random things and not feeling very good about it because
Mm.
I didn't think it was art. Um, but I met, I went to a talk on art and mental illness, and I met the director of Fountain Gallery, and he said that he would take a look at my work. And he gave me his number, and I was so scared. I mean, I was thrilled, but I was so scared. I waited 2 months before I called him.
Oh.
Then he said, "Sure, come by. We have our community meeting every Wednesday." And I went, and I took out a piece, and someone in the meeting said, "Ooh, that's so cool." And I just thought, oh, I guess it's okay. I'm an artist, And he said, "Yeah, just come to our community meeting, see how you feel." And eventually he said, "If you really want to show in our shows, you have to join Fountain House, and but you have to have a mental health diagnosis." And I was like, "No problem." Got that covered. So I applied, and I got in, and I had never even been to Fountain House itself. I'd only been to these gallery meetings every week. But I
Mm.
was volunteering, I was, cleaning, I was sitting at the front desk. And then I got into Fountain House, and I had my tour, and I was just like, I get to go to this place too. This is amazing. Um, I think, like Annie, I do prefer to work in silence and solitude, but I am a resident at the studio. And so I guess I've evolved some. Um I I do more random stuff at home and more planned stuff at the studio.
Mm.
But I never studied art, and I kind of pride myself in that because I feel like if I listen to what somebody else says are the rules, it's going to change
Mm.
what comes to me, because I feel like I listen to the materials. They tell me where they belong. I get a sense of, you know, it seems random, but I am very selective about what I sew next to um, another piece. I mean, they're all machine sewn onto like a background piece of fabric, and they're just strands of other materials. They could be yarn, it could be a strip of cut fabric, it could be um, a bit of ribbon or trim or um,
Mm.
anything.
So when you said you came out of hospital, I'm just going to stop sharing and spotlight you a second. I've lost you. There you are. Spotlight. When you said you came out of hospital and you said that you weren't really a creative person, was it someone that suggested to you to start being creative, or did you just one day think, I'm just going to play around with these things that I've collected and see what happens?
No, I became a compulsive maker, a compulsive collector. I just saw things and I thought, I need to put that with this. I, when I was interacting with other people, I had a lot of problems, a lot of conflict, and um, it, it was better for me to stay home. But when I did go out, I just saw things that I thought, I made a lot of dioramas. Like I kept shoeboxes and I would create scenes with like a cigarette butt or a broken bottle or, some paint or something. And I just put these random things together. Before I had my brain injury, I did make quilts. I sewed, I made like costumes for plays, and, I could follow a pattern. I knit. But after my brain injury, I could not follow a pattern. I mean, I was so arrogant. I was sure. I remember I was learning to walk little by little, longer and longer distances, and there was a knitting store 10 minutes from my house, and I walked there and I told the owner of the store, I think there's something wrong with this pattern. I cannot make this. It's just impossible. And we wrote a letter to the company, and no, it was me. I mean, it still happens to me where I'm sure I'm right and I'm so off. Um, so
And
it's just
that's okay.
I forget it and then I remember it, but it's just better for me to let things happen. Yeah, it's an urge. It's like a compulsion. I have to be doing something with my hands.
So, do you want to tell us a bit about the works in the show? Because four of them are focused around like a forest theme, and then
Yes.
the other one is more like bricks. Do you want to talk
Yeah.
about the two different things?
I think they come from the same place because one of the things I just love to do, and it is like a trance for me, like the way Annie describes, just, I'll have, um, materials in my sewing room and just, I'll sit at the sewing machine and I'll just pick something up and I just sew it down and I pick something up and sew it down. And it starts to build into something that I love. And I, I remember the light green one, I think was the one I had shown my therapist, and she said, wow, that really looks like a forest. And I hadn't realized how much it did because I don't find it easy to um, make something look like something else. I try. Um, but when she said that, I saw it and I had a few other pieces that were similar. And so I kind of changed them into forest too by adding a little depth, darkness, and then foreground with the moss and so yeah, that's where that came about.
And what about the bricks?
The bricks, as you can see behind me, came from um, this was the first piece I made with bricks. I again was just sewing strips and strips and strips of color. And I began to realize all this peach and maroon and pink and brown and blue together looked like what real bricks look like. Um, that bricks are not just one color. And so I took my strips and I cut them down and I looked up the dimensions of a brick. Still being a math person, I needed the proportion to be correct. And I I sewed them onto, I mean, this is painstaking work, a little 3/4 inch by 3 inch um, piece I sewed on, one at a time. And then the next one, I tried to, pick up a little piece from a different place so they wouldn't look like it was just a row. Um, and I just loved the way it looked, and I love making them. Like I have to be making something, so I make them because I don't know. People seem to like them, you know?
They're really beautiful tones across all of your works, which is really lovely when I was looking through them to select them. And Annie, how would you describe yourself in 5 words?
My
Your
art.
Your art, yeah.
I would say organized chaos. Um, fashion inspired, tactile.
Nice word.
I loved clothes. I always loved clothes. I love putting together an outfit that looked good. So in some ways, when I sew, I'm thinking about what would look good with what.
That makes sense. Well, thank you, Alyson, and we will come back to you again for the Q&A shortly. And Susan, if you could unmute yourself, I'm going to share Susan's work. Yeah. Susan, so hello. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to art?
Hi, my name is Susan, and thanks, Jennifer, for having me in the show.
You're welcome.
I started making art at 3 years old. I'm self-taught. I didn't go to art school. The arts were not encouraged at home, and I fought my whole life to be an artist. I make dolls. They're all hand sewn. I use different materials and mediums, and these are made from unprimed canvas. I've used acrylic, charcoal, marker, and pencil on these. Some of the people I make dolls of have mental health issues. All 3 dolls in this show are writers that I admire who have mental illness, some diagnosed and some not. Virginia Woolf, Sylvia Plath, and Edgar Allan Poe. Although I don't think Poe was diagnosed, but clearly he had issues. I'll start with Virginia Woolf. The text on the doll is her last letter she wrote, addressed to her husband before she died of tragic circumstances. Sylvia Plath, I always loved her poetry, and incidentally, I read her book, The Bell Jar, while I was in a mental hospital. Edgar Allan Poe was my twin brother's favorite writer. He died when we were both 18, and he was a writer himself. I dedicate the doll to him. And I also have empathy for Poe and his illness because drugs and alcohol run in my family. I have been a member of Fountain House Gallery since 2015. And what I love the most is getting hugs from Rachel and Becky. I love being in the Outsider Art Fair and seeing people that I haven't seen in a whole year. Being there is a dream come true, and I'm so grateful. It hasn't been easy accepting the fact that I have a mental illness, but I feel proud to have come so far and be able to represent myself front and center as an artist with mental illness in the premier gallery for people living with mental illness, Fountain House Gallery. My diagnosis is not something I run away from anymore, but something that I embrace and hope to inspire others to do. 5 words to describe my dolls are alive, resurrection, emotional, spiritual, and timeless. Thank you.
Well, Susan, you did it all in one. Can we talk a little bit about the dolls a bit more? What sort of scale, for those that haven't seen them, are these?
Forgetting the measurements, I'd say they're a little bit bigger than this one. Here's one at home I have, but it's bigger than this one.
Yeah, they are bigger than that. Yeah. And what do you stuff them with?
I stuffed them with polyester stuffing mostly, and I started with cotton stuffing, but these in particular have polyester stuffing.
And what was the first doll that you ever made?
Oh, it was actually a doll called Girl in Restraints, which is actually at Fountain House Gallery right now. It started with this drawing, Girl in Restraints.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started doing like going into, you could see the going into the 3D version where I have writing, but it's my life. And it was just, I guess it was just like quick, just trying to get it out, my story. Sometimes I would write backwards because I really didn't want anybody to see it. So I'd put it in pencil because it was, it was heavy and it was personal stuff, trauma and stuff. So this is Girl in Restraints, and you could see the restraints, and she's looking through the seclusion room window. This is a hospital gown. A lot of times I take the hospital gowns that I wore in hospitals and I cut them up and I put them on the dolls. So some of my dolls actually have, in particular, I do different series, and one of my series, Asylum dolls, which these 3 in Meticulous Markings are of that category. Some of them do have hospital gowns that I wore. And then it just went into my first doll. My first doll that I tried to make was actually in 2012, 2013, when I was living at home with my parents. But actually took some couple of stuffed animals and ripped them apart and put them back together the way I wanted to see it. And one of my sisters walked into the bedroom and she said, "Oh, that's hideous." And so I tried to hide it, but then it's like she just would not let it go. So I ended up throwing it out. So it took me a couple of years to start again, but I did.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for Fountain House Gallery and the studio, because although I don't go to the studio that often, I did do 2 residencies at Fountain House Studio in Long Island City, and one was a year after I got out of the hospital, a couple of months to a year. And so reflecting on my last hospitalization in 2018, where I actually wore this gown on the wards, that really, having a place to just be social again and to create it was very helpful for me. To explore the Girl in Restraints there. So I am grateful for the studio, though I tend to like to work alone at home. And also, I used to be a member of the Living Museum where I was a patient. It's on the grounds of Creedmoor State Hospital. And I was there I was young when I was there, but I was there for like 6 years. So I went from the inpatient ward in 1995 to 2001. I started as an inpatient in Creedmoor, went to the Living Museum. That was my art studio, and that was the best of it because there was nobody there. It was the 90s. And we all had our own room and stuff like that. And anyway, things happened, but which I won't go into. But then I lost my studio space there after 6 years, and was at home basically for 10 years, not doing any art. And I was not allowed to do art at home. And then, but I would do art anyway. Like I do art in the hospital. I always found a way to create. Nothing was going to stop me. Like I stole a pen from the nursing station. I wrote my first solo play in the hospital in 2015. So I always found a way to create. I would take pillowcases and try to write on them with crayons or whatever I could, like pieces of paper off the wall, But I would try to do work in my house and hide it. I would go to Michael's art store across the street, hide my stuff, write poetry, hide it in pieces of paper and fold it and put it in my bag, stuff like that. And then, so joining Fountain House Gallery was really nice. What I love about it, it gives me structure. So even if I have nothing else to do, we do 6 shows a year with outside curators like yourself. And by the way, all of our shows look great, but your show looks fantastic. It has this beautiful orange
thank you.
color on the wall. And I can tell you, I feel so proud and so blessed to walk into the gallery and to see like Jennifer Lauren gallery on it. It's just so cool. It's like 2 galleries coming together at once. And it's such a beautiful show. Everybody that sees this show says it's beautiful. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. What is it that you like about the tactile quality, this kind of sculptural element of the dolls that you make, rather than just doing a drawing?
I really feel like it's bringing something to life. I really feel like my dolls are real. Like my first doll was actually a self-portrait. So I was really just creating myself as a doll.
Mhm.
And most of my life, I never really felt real, or things around me sometimes didn't feel real. And I felt like a doll.
Mhm.
But then dolls seemed real because I knew I was real. That sounds weird, but yeah, they seem like real people to me. So I'm, God wants me to do this. Like I really feel like in my life, the God has set out a path for me to create certain certain dolls and certain icons, and they will come to me. I will certain voices or certain things I see, people, the visions, the writers, they speak to me like I
Mhm.
really feel like I'm in tune with something a higher power, the dead, the spiritual. My mother, it started kind of with my mother because my mother's of Trinidadian descent, from the islands, from Trinidad.
Wow.
And growing up, there was like kind of like a lot of voodoo in my house, which I was terrified of because my mother was very abusive, and so a lot of that was taken out on me. But I really embraced my roots and the spirituality of the my culture, my Indian culture, which is mixed with actually voodoo is mixed with a lot of black culture. So
Mhm.
my mom's Trinidadian, she's Indian, but it was very mixed with a lot of the British because of the British rule. So there's a lot of that. And then there's also this wonderful African culture that's mixed into the Indian culture with people in Trinidad. And my mother adopted a lot of that stuff, even though she'd like to not admit that there's a lot of black in there. But I'm certainly very proud of it and aware of my history, aware of my roots, the slave roots of my mother's ancestors coming from India to work the cane fields
Mhm.
in Trinidad. And I've just embraced that because there is magic to it. There's a lot of magic to a lot of the voodoo and the things that my mother was doing in the house. Now, she wasn't creative at all. She would just like cast spells and do weird stuff like that. And some of it I thought was directed towards me. And then I realized, I always had this like, the thing is like, I really believe like I had this scar here. And my mother, when I was 3 years old, uh, she hit me with a frying pan, right? And that's okay, but now I don't want to go into that. But the point is like I had like she tried to take away my third eye. That's what I believe looking back, my intuition. Like I was unconscious and I had to get stitches. So when she took that away, I thought she took that away, but I swear I feel like it just really instead it opened something up because it
Mhm.
was always there. Like I always felt that she tried to take the magic away from me because she knew I was in tune with things, you know?
Mhm.
So I was in tune with a higher power, spirituality. And I really embraced my Christian roots as well. My father was German Lutheran, and a lot of that because I grew up across the street from St. Joan of Arc. And growing up, I had like certain visions and certain, I guess you would call them hallucinations, but a lot of that affected my art,
Mhm.
including my making my dolls, my spiritual octopus series. I've had dreams, I've had visions, I've had certain dolls like talk to me. I've had certain icons like early one morning, Robert Oppenheimer appeared in my living room and it scared me. But
Mhm.
something told me that I had to make that doll. And I was like, but why would I? I was actually fighting it. I'm like, well, why would I make this doll? Like, the atom bomb and all this. But something told me, no, he wants me to do this reason. And so
Yeah.
as I started looking at his life, I was like, I see so much spirituality in him besides just being a brilliant person, but just the humanity of like, I read one story about Mr. Oppenheimer where, after the atom bomb fell and everything, and he didn't want the second one to fall, and he was begging people to not send it. And of course, we also the movie and stuff, but I read an article that his son was interviewed in an article saying that after he moved to an island with his family, he got very upset and he begged for a turtle's life. Like, we can't have this for dinner. We cannot kill this turtle.
Wow.
So yeah, and if you see him in recordings, his eyes are just very like it's almost like he's ghost-like he's coming out at you. And anyway, sorry. But I've had I had a dream I was Joan of Arc. I knew I had to do the Joan of Arc doll. I had a dream that I was Joan of Arc and I was on the battlefield and I could see it. And I just woke up crying thinking I should have died with my men. So then I started working on Joan of Arc in class, and then that wasn't enough, and I had to create the doll. Something was telling me,
Yeah.
oh, she's the leader of the asylum dolls right now. She's gonna lead this army for me because she's like the leader of the mentally the mentally ill also. So it made sense in my world of dolls, like she's a leader. So yeah, just
Thank you, Susan.
yeah, thank you. Sorry, went on to
Don't worry, I didn't want to cut you off.
okay.
But thank you for being honest and sharing those stories with us. So what we're going to do now is open it to the floor. If anyone's got any questions, I know there's some in the chat box. So if you either want to use the raise hand function or if you want to type it into the chat box, please do. Heather's put a few in the chat box, and I want to ask Alyson's first because I'm intrigued as well. Heather's asked, what would you consider the strangest thing you found on the ground that you've used in your artwork, Alyson?
It can you define strange? Uh, I mean, I found a dead hummingbird at the farm, and I was tempted to put it into my artwork, but I didn't. Um, I've used my own blood. I've used cigarette butts, um, broken glass, a tampon applicator that I found on the beach. I
That's
guess
all
those are.
quite strange, yes. And Heather also says pretty strange. Heather's asked a question for you, Kelila. Do you have the gift of synthesia? And do you associate letters and numbers with colors?
No, I do not have synesthesia myself, although I am a big fan of Kandinsky and his art, and he did have synesthesia. Um, I do have very strong emotions about certain numbers and certain colors and certain letters, though. So I don't know how it's all mixed up in my mind, but it's not like I don't believe it's like a true cross sensory perception of it. I just think my emotions can be so strong, they draw things together, make them feel like that.
That's lovely. And Annie, Heather's question to you was, do you have any rituals or routines that you do to tell your body and mind that it's time to go into a trance? Annie, you just need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to say that Heather is a good friend of mine. So Heather, I'm glad that you came. Um, I just wrote a couple of notes. So I didn't even realize what was happening. I didn't know that I was going into a trance until I had made like 50 of these drawings. And suddenly I was like, wait, it's like I'm blacking out because I can't ever find my way back in. So basically, the thing that helps me the most is just to create a clean space. I love the echoes of my apartment. It's got these long wooden hallways. And so let me see, I wrote a couple notes. Yeah, basically, I can't predict them, and I don't understand them, so I can't make them happen. They just happen. I don't realize when it's coming.
There we go. And then a question for Susan. Have you ever given a doll as a gift to someone? And
Yes,
maybe we'll ask what was it and why?
yes, I actually gave my Shakespeare acting teacher that I study with. Actually, I've studied with him for a couple of years. Peter Francis James, my mentor. I gave him a James Baldwin doll.
And
I
why
also
in
gave
particular?
I also gave my private therapist a Edward Monk, the Scream, the character, the Scream. I just gave him that, and it's in his office every time I see him. So,
And why did you give your mentor the James Baldwin one?
actually, my teacher, Peter Francis James, actually turned me on to this beautiful essay, "Why I Stopped Hating Shakespeare," written by James Baldwin. I was so moved by it that he kind of inspired that doll anyway. So that's why I gave it to him.
Excellent. Did I meet him in America?
Yeah, I brought him
Yeah,
out of nowhere. I was happy he all of a sudden could make it, and it's an outside art fair.
yeah.
And yeah, he's just a very talented, very nice guy. You know, I'll be taking him again in the fall, so really feel very blessed to have him as my teacher.
Wonderful.
You gotta see, I mean, he was just on Left on 10th on Broadway, but you really have to see him play Shakespeare because he's a master teacher and he's a wonderful actor.
Mhm. Excellent. Annie, Becky has asked, are these trances similar to a flow state?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think they're similar to a flow state because a flow state to me is when I have an idea, I kind of warm up, and the more I work, the more I get into it, then it will really take off. But these are completely unpredictable and they just happen right away. There's no sketching, there's no planning, and they seem to be perfect from the first thought that goes down.
Wow. As a maybe follow on to everyone for all of this, you've talked about like how important art is for you, and often you work very obsessively with your work. Do you all work every day creating, or are there days when you don't? Annie.
I wish I could work every day, but I prioritize my health and I go to Fountain House every day and I break my isolation. I do fall into isolation after maybe just one day being home. So I try to keep myself busy there. I work on the newspaper, and there's a lot that I do there that makes me feel productive, connected.
That's nice. So you're still being creative without physically doing your art and being creative and in that intense moment.
Yeah, I just dedicate myself to whatever it is that I'm doing.
Yeah. Kelila?
Although I do not necessarily paint and draw every single day, every day I wake up and I want to be, further along my journey as an artist and as studying Krav Maga. So as long as I'm doing something for both of those each day, so for art that can, sometimes it's, an administrative meeting that I'm doing via Zoom with artists in London. Sometimes it's the professional development meeting through Fountain House Gallery. But I do have set days where I do draw. I paint on Wednesday afternoons. I attend an animal sketch through the Fountain House Silver Center Friday mornings. So we do animals every Friday. And I do, with the London collab that I'm a part of, we do a creation with the prompt every Saturday. And Sundays, I attend Kiko Kennedy's Maker Society. So I I feel like I definitely do better with structure and accountability. So yeah, I am involved in the arts every day and I try and actually produce art as much as possible.
Yes, you sound like you've got a lot going on.
I definitely create every day. I think it's what keeps me sane. I was thinking about the flow state. It's the only time that my brain is not kind of attacking me with, self-doubt talk and so I just need to. I have to sit down at my sewing machine every day. If I sit in front of the TV, I can't have my hands free. I I work a lot. I probably make art 5 or 6 hours a day on average.
That is a lot. But it's obviously something, like you said, you're very passionate about it. So when you're so passionate about something, it doesn't feel like a chore, does it? It feels like this is something
Not at
you
all.
have to do.
I think too many chores go by the wayside as I realize there's mail I haven't opened for a year, and
I feel like there's some people that can identify with chores going by the wayside because their art has taken over instead. Yes. And Susan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm constantly doing art. It really helps me because I have anxiety, depression, self-harm issues, and art is a great channel for that. And I'm always making dolls. I have several categories of dolls, so I'm always creating. I'm also Becky just saw me in a play. Thanks, Becky. I'm in a play. I perform as an actor under the stage name Shyla Idris. So I'm in a play off Broadway right now called Adam Driver. It's funny the name.
Wow.
Chain Theater. So we have two more shows on the 13th and the 19th. And then after that, at my school, my acting school, HB Studio, I'll be doing a stage reading in May called American Scoreboard, How Did We Get Here? And then I'll be doing an excerpt of my solo play, my second solo play now called Last Will. It's Shakespeare, psychiatry, and an actor's journey. So it combines classical and contemporary text. And it's just my journey about losing my father and how he really inspired me to be an actor. And so I'm going to perform that in the theater June 3rd.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm always doing stuff.
You're
And
also very busy always. Yes.
for fun though, my favorite thing is playing Shakespeare. So I just do that at home for fun. And I like to do different characters, and I put them on my YouTube channel. And I also recently made a playlist for my next solo show, Last Will. So I have a Last Will playlist where it's kind of like behind the scenes working on a show and how you put a show together. And some of it may make the final cut, some may not.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, and I keep
Busy
making
then.
dolls too. Yeah, I just keep making dolls. The last doll I made was a Prince doll, and I submitted it. We're gonna have a show in the summer called Life's a Party. That should be a lot of fun. And who
Great.
knows, again, and maybe it won't, but I just Prince is besides being a genius, he's a very spiritual guy, and I like a lot of his lyrics for that reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joyce, I know that you wanted to ask a question. Do you want to say it out loud?
Yeah, that's fine. This has been fascinating. Can I just say thank you very much to all four of the artists who have presented. I'm kind of trying to process it. I mean, I live in a very different cultural setting. I live in a tiny island, uh, overnight ferry, 14 hours to get to mainland Scotland. So very different from where you guys are. And I'm just trying to think about how my environment where I live, the art that happens here, impacts what I produce. And I'm curious as to how you feel where you live and in such an urban area in America just now with everything that's going on, how you think it influences you and how it helps you tell your story. Because I think what you've all kind of said, if I'm right, forgive me if I'm not, is that becoming artists and doing what you're telling the story of what's gone before, and you're finding a way to do that very beautifully. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Alison, did you want to go first?
Um, that there's a lot there. I mean, I wish my art was telling a story. I'm not sure that it does. I think if anything, being in this urban environment is overwhelming. I don't think that, and it's there's an abundance of art. So I don't think that art could influence my art because there's just so much out there. Um, and what's going on in the country, I just feel helpless and hopeless, and my art helps me not think about it.
Mhm.
So if it is a an answer to what's going on, I'm very grateful. I mean, I'm happy if it moves somebody or touches somebody or says something, but I never set out to say or um I don't know why I make what I make, in other words.
Mhm. That's fine. That is okay. Kalila?
Yes. Well, I definitely consider myself a New York City based artist. My dad is from Brooklyn and my mom is from Queens. So even though I grew up in South Jersey, like New York has always been in my blood. And I chose to come here for college and then just never wanted to leave. Excuse me. So I feel like it's like part of my fabric. But as far as the urban setting, um, there is art everywhere. I go by the street and there's murals on the schools. I go by a pile of trash and somebody has scribbled something on it. And then I take a photo of that. The people, there can be, a bit much people and does make me want to maybe stay inside, but there's so much vibrancy and electric quality about the city. And I mean, I'm here because there are so many museums and Broadway is here. So yes, I feel very fortunate that last month I got to go see the Luna Luna exhibit at the Shed in Hudson Yards and see, I was in the same room with, Basquiat's work and yes, it's very I feel very lucky and I'm very grateful to be here. And we are now also the home of Museum of the Dog.
Thanks. Annie?
I came to New York as a painter because I wanted to know the culture of New York City, not just art, but the New York art world. And so that really sucked me in. I'm addicted to the city. But recently I've had to start my whole life over. And it's all a surprise what is going to happen. And I've kind of just more drawn myself inward to find this new person that I'm becoming. And it's it's not about all those things. It's not about art history. It's not about what's happening around me. It's just about, how am I surviving and how am I creating a new Annie?
Yeah, that makes sense, Annie. And Susan, you sound like you live, eat, and breathe going around New York as well.
Yeah, I think I think growing up in New York City, honestly, it was just hard for me, growing up in poverty, and it certainly reflects in my work and the materials I use or what I can afford. Or a lot of times I go to the 99-cent store and get buttons or thread or just scraps of fabric from the store, like for 50 cents, or I'll bargain with the guy. Come on, that's not $1, that's 50 cents. And it's a very Indian thing to do anyway, bartering. But yeah, I'm very sensitive to sound, so I feel like for me, sometimes being outside for too long is hard, and I just like want to run back inside. And I do just want to run back inside of my house, and that's I like just quiet and isolating myself. And then I have this other side of me that I guess always wanted to express myself, and particularly like these emotions I have sometimes, like just extreme emotions. So I think acting definitely helped me look at people in the eye. It was like it was something, because growing up I didn't look at people in the eye. I didn't talk till I was like in my 20s. I was really quiet, and yeah, even just like I'd be pulling out my hair when I was younger, which is kind of like where this Out of My Head doll series came from. So, but I think we're telling stories. We're constantly telling many different stories. As Joyce said, the environment affects us, our personal environment where we grow up, whether we have mental health issues or not, which I think everybody has mental health issues and problems and struggles. And I think that, I'd love to see like, what Joyce does. I'm sure she's an artist. I'm guessing she's an artist, and the kind of work she creates in Scotland. You have a beautiful accent, by the way. And New York, and just being mixed, like just for me being mixed, and how that's the two religions in my two religions, and how that's affected me and actually growing up with not with religion, but something I had to
Mhm.
find on, and just being my identity issues being half German, half Indian, my mom being dark, my dad being lighter, and how that's played into. I think it's just all there, you
Yeah.
know, and even now, when you're kind of like our country, America is in a state of shock right now, in a state of trauma. Not only collectively have we gone through that with the pandemic, which I believe if we look back, we don't always know how something's affecting us at the moment. But when we look back, we see that the pandemic affected all of us on
Mhm.
some different levels. And right now, like we're going through a lot in our country, and I feel so happy that our brothers and sisters in England are marching with us, in
Mhm.
France, all across the world. And even though I don't do social political art per se, a lot of stuff like that has affected me, including now Trump. So, I'm feeling like I do have to do like the doll that I'm working on now is Alexei Navalny, just because it just speaks to the time, if not now, when. And I've been wanting to do Alexei Navalny for a while now, and I promise I'm going to do this doll. Once the play's over, I'm going to do the doll, but I have to do it because this is what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our freedom right now. So
Thanks, Susan.
yeah.
I'm just gonna hear from Alison, and then we're gonna draw it to a close. Alison, you wanted to
Thank
say
you.
something?
I was just thinking about what a lot of the artists said, and a common theme. I think I can't speak for them, but I grew up in an abusive home, and I had a chaotic childhood. And I think there's something about the way art, when I make art, I have control. I'm able to control a little tiny world, a tiny space. Um, it's what gives me back. I can take back the control by
Mhm.
deciding what goes into my piece, and that's empowering. And like Susan said, I'm so grateful. I think we all are to have been included in this show. Um, thank you so much.
And thank you for that. That's a lovely way to end, showing the importance of art in your life and carving out this little portion of time to kind of bring happiness. So thank you for that, Alison. And thank you to everyone for coming today, and thank you to the artists for their honesty and for sharing. And it's really important for me that artists get a chance to have their voice heard. So thank you everyone for sharing your voices today. And this will live on the website, on my website and Fountain Houses. If anyone missed it or any of your friends or family missed it, for them to watch at a later date. But thank you, everyone, and enjoy your afternoon in New York or your evening if you're European, and take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.